I have sat on this bench for 32 years. I have presided over thousands of cases, drug offenses, domestic disputes, petty theft, corporate fraud. I have seen humanity at its worst and occasionally at its best. But in all my years wearing this robe, I had never encountered a case that so perfectly crystallized the moral crisis of our time until the morning Christopher Aldrich walked into my courtroom. The bailiff called the case People v. Christopher James Aldrich. Simple assault. Disorderly conduct. Nothing that would make headlines, you might think. But when I glanced at the defense table and saw the young man sitting there, 23 years old, wearing a custom suit that probably cost more than most people make in 3 months, I knew this would be different. Christopher was the son of Marcus Aldrich, founder and CEO of Aldrich Technologies, one of the largest software companies in the world. His father's net worth had been estimated at $47 billion. Christopher himself had never worked a day in his life, not in any traditional sense. He had attended private schools, summered in the Hamptons, graduated from an Ivy League university where a new library wing bore his family's name. I watched him as he sat there, scrolling through his phone while we waited for the proceedings to begin. His attorney, a partner at one of the city's most expensive firms, leaned over to whisper something to him. Christopher barely acknowledged the man. He had that particular look I've come to recognize over the years, the expression of someone who has never truly believed that rules apply to them. The victim sat on the other side of the courtroom. Her name was Maria Santos, 51 years old. She had emigrated from the Philippines 16 years earlier, leaving behind her elderly parents and younger sister to find work in America. For the past decade, she had worked as a server at an upscale cafe in the downtown district, the kind of place where a single cappuccino costs $8 and a breakfast sandwich runs $15. Maria made $9.75 an hour plus tips. She worked 42 hours a week, sometimes more during holidays. After rent for the studio apartment she shared with her niece, after utilities, after sending money home to her family in Manila, she had perhaps $200 left each month for food, transportation, and emergencies. She had no car. She took 2 buses to get to work each morning, leaving her apartment at 4:30 a.m., to arrive by 6 for the breakfast shift. I had reviewed the case file carefully before that morning. I always do. But nothing quite prepares you for the moment when the actual human beings walk into your courtroom and the abstractions become real. "Mr. Aldrich," I said, "you stand accused of assault and disorderly conduct. How do you plead?" His attorney stood quickly. "Not guilty, Your Honor. My client disputes the characterization of events entirely." I nodded. "Very well. Prosecution, please present your case." The assistant district attorney was a young woman named Jennifer Park, sharp and thorough. She approached the bench with a tablet computer. "Your Honor, on the morning of October 14th, the defendant entered the Meridian Cafe at approximately 7:15 a.m. Security footage and witness testimony show that he became verbally abusive toward the staff when informed that his breakfast order would take longer than expected due to kitchen volume. When Miss Santos, who was serving him, attempted to apologize and explain, the defendant threw a hot cup of coffee directly at her, striking her in the chest and face. He then pushed her backward, causing her to fall against a table. The entire incident was captured on the cafe's security system. She played the video on the courtroom monitor. I watched in silence. Christopher Aldrich stood at the counter, phone in one hand, clearly agitated. Maria approached him. I could see her speaking, gesturing apologetically toward the kitchen. What happened next took perhaps 5 seconds. Christopher grabbed the cup from the counter and hurled the contents at her. The liquid arced across the space between them. Maria's hands went up instinctively, but too late. The coffee struck her face and upper body. She stumbled backward, colliding with a table behind her, and fell. Christopher stood there for a moment, then turned and walked out of the cafe. The courtroom was silent when the video ended. Miss Santos was treated at the emergency room for first-degree burns on her face, neck, and chest, the prosecutor continued. She missed 3 days of work, unpaid, and continues to experience pain and scarring. I looked at Christopher Aldrich. He sat motionless, his expression unchanged. Not defiant, exactly, just absent. as though he were watching something that had nothing to do with him. "Mr. Aldrich," I said quietly, "I'd like to hear from you. In your own words. What happened that morning?" His attorney stirred his eyes, but Christopher waved him off. He stood slowly, adjusting his tie. "Your Honor, I was having a difficult morning. I had just come from a meeting that went poorly. I was stressed. The service at the cafe was unacceptably slow, and when I expressed my frustration, the woman became argumentative. I didn't throw coffee at anyone. I set my cup down, and she knocked it over herself while she was gesturing wildly. Then she fell. It was an accident." I studied him for a long moment. "You set your cup down?" "Yes, Your Honor." And somehow the coffee traveled 3 feet through the air and struck Miss Santos in the face. She knocked it toward herself. "Mr. Aldrich, I just watched the security footage. We all did. What you've just told me is demonstrably false." His attorney stood quickly. "Your Honor, my client is understandably distressed by these proceedings. Perhaps we should—" "Sit down, Counselor." I kept my eyes on Christopher. "Mr. Aldrich, I am giving you an opportunity to tell the truth. I suggest you take it." For the first time, something flickered across his face. Irritation, maybe, or surprise that someone was pushing back. "I was upset," he said finally. "The service was terrible. She was condescending. I reacted poorly. But she's fine. It was just coffee. This has been blown completely out of proportion." "Just coffee," I repeated. "Miss Santos, would you please stand?" Maria rose from her seat slowly. She wore a simple blouse and dark pants, her work uniform. Even from the bench, I could see the reddish marks on her neck where the burns were still healing. "Miss Santos," I said gently, "would you tell the court what happened that morning, in your own words?" She stepped forward to the witness stand. Her hands were shaking slightly as she placed them on the rail. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but steady. "I have worked at the Meridian for 10 years, Your Honor. Every morning, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., I know all the regular customers. Some of them, I know their orders before they speak. I take pride in my work. It is not glamorous, but it is honest work, and I do it well." That morning, we were very busy. There was a convention in town. Many people came in at once. The kitchen was running maybe 5-6 minutes behind. When Mr. Aldrich ordered his breakfast, I told him it would be about 15 minutes. He became angry immediately. He said— She paused, glancing at me apologetically. He used very bad language. He said I was incompetent. He said people like me should not be allowed to work in places like that. He said if I could not do my job properly, I should go back to where I came from. I apologized. I told him I would personally make sure his order was ready as quickly as possible. I was very polite. I have learned in this job that you must always be polite, no matter what people say to you. But he became more angry. He picked up the coffee that was sitting on the counter, another customer's order, and he threw it at my face. Her voice cracked slightly. She stopped, took a breath, continued. The coffee was very hot. I felt like my face was on fire. I could not see. I fell backward and hit the table. Other customers helped me. Someone called the ambulance. Mr. Aldrich had already left. I went to the hospital. The doctor said I was lucky. If the coffee had hit my eyes, I might have been blinded. They gave me ointment for the burns, but I had to miss 3 days of work. That is $292 I lost, not including tips. My rent is due on the 1st. I send money to my family every month. My mother needs medicine for her diabetes. Those 3 days, it may not seem like much to some people, but for me, it was everything. The courtroom was absolutely silent. I do not want to be here, Maria continued. I do not want to cause trouble. But what he did, it was not right. And the way he looked at me, like I was not a person, like I was nothing. I have worked very hard my whole life. I left my family, my country, to build a better life. I pay my taxes, I follow the rules, I treat everyone with respect. I deserve respect too. She looked directly at Christopher Aldrich. I deserve respect too. I waited a moment before speaking. Thank you, Miss Santos. You may be seated. I turned to Christopher. Mr. Aldrich, do you have anything to say to Miss Santos? He glanced at his attorney, who gave a small shake of his head. Christopher shrugged. I'm sorry she got hurt, but this is absurd. This whole thing, it's ridiculous. So I lost my temper. People lose their temper every day. My father has already offered to compensate her for her lost wages and medical expenses. We're willing to settle this quietly. I don't understand why we're even here. You don't understand why we're here, I repeated slowly. No, Your Honor. With all due respect, this is a waste of everyone's time. It was a minor incident. No one was seriously injured. My attorney has prepared a settlement offer that more than covers any damages. Can't we just resolve this and move on? I sat back in my chair. I have learned over the years that the most important decisions require patience. Rushed judgment is poor judgment. So I took my time. Mr. Aldrich, I said finally, you asked me why we're here. Let me explain it to you. We are here because you assaulted another human being. We are here because you caused her physical pain, emotional distress, and financial hardship. We are here because when you were caught, instead of accepting responsibility, you lied. And we are here because even now, standing in this courtroom, you still don't seem to understand the gravity of what you've done. You said this was just coffee, but it wasn't just coffee, was it? It was a weapon. You used it to hurt someone who had done nothing to deserve your anger. You said no one was seriously injured. Miss Santos has burns that will scar. She lost wages she desperately needed. And beyond the physical damage, you tried to rob her of something even more precious, her dignity. You told her to go back to where she came from. Do you have any idea what that means? Miss Santos came to this country 16 years ago with almost nothing. She has worked every day since then, not at a job that was handed to her, not in a company her father built, but in a cafe, serving people their morning coffee. She has sent money home to support her family. She has followed every law, paid every tax, treated every customer with respect. She has earned her place here 1,000 times over. And you, a person who has never had to struggle for anything, never had to worry about rent or bills or where your next meal would come from, you decided in a moment of petulance that she was beneath you, that her time, her labor, her very presence was something you could dismiss with cruelty and violence. I leaned forward. Let me tell you something, Mr. Aldrich. I have been on this bench for 3 decades. I have seen wealth beyond imagining walk through these doors. I have seen poverty that would break your heart. And I have learned one fundamental truth. The measure of a human being has nothing to do with their bank account, their last name, or the size of their father's company. Maria Santos has more integrity in her smallest finger than you have demonstrated in your entire life. She wakes up at 4:30 every morning to serve people their coffee with a smile. She supports her family across an ocean. She treats strangers with kindness, even when they treat her with contempt. That is character. That is dignity. That is worth. You, on the other hand, have shown me nothing but arrogance and entitlement. You have no respect for others. You have no accountability. You believe your money can erase your actions. Well, Mr. Aldrich, you're about to learn that it cannot. Christopher's face had gone pale. His attorney was scribbling notes furiously. I find you guilty of assault and disorderly conduct, I continued, and I am sentencing you to 90 days in county jail. You will serve every day. No work release. No special accommodations. Additionally, you will pay full restitution to Miss Santos for her medical expenses, lost wages, and pain and suffering. I'm setting that amount at $50,000. Christopher's attorney shot to his feet. Your Honor, I'm not finished, I said. When you are released from jail, you will complete 500 hours of community service. But not just any community service. You will work in food service, restaurants, cafes, anywhere that will have you. You will earn minimum wage. You will serve customers. You will clean tables. You will learn what it means to do the work that you treated with such contempt. If you fail to complete this service, you will return to jail for the remainder of a 1-year sentence. Do you understand? Christopher stared at me. For the first time, I saw something other than boredom or irritation in his eyes. I saw fear. Do you understand? I repeated. Yes, he whispered. Yes, Your Honor. Good. Bailiff, please take Mr. Aldrich into custody. The courtroom erupted into murmurs as the bailiff approached Christopher. His attorney was already on his phone, no doubt calling the senior partners to discuss an appeal. Christopher himself looked stunned, as though he couldn't quite believe what was happening. As they led him away, I looked at Maria Santos. She was crying quietly, her hand pressed to her mouth. Not tears of joy exactly, something deeper, relief, perhaps, or vindication. The simple, profound recognition that she had been heard. that her pain mattered, that she mattered. 6 months later, I was reviewing case files in my chambers when my clerk knocked on the door. "Judge, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important. Christopher Aldrich." I looked up in surprise. "Send him in." The young man who entered my chambers looked different, thinner. His expensive suit had been replaced by jeans and a simple button-down shirt. His hair was shorter, but the biggest change was in his eyes. The vacant, arrogant distance was gone. "Your Honor," he said, "thank you for seeing me. I know I shouldn't just show up like this, but I needed to talk to you." "Sit down, Mr. Aldrich." He sat on the edge of the chair, his hands folded in his lap. "I finished my jail sentence 2 months ago. I'm halfway through my community service hours. I'm working at a diner in the East End, 5 days a week, 8-hour shifts." "How is that going?" "It's hard," he said simply. "Harder than I ever imagined. My feet hurt constantly. Some customers are rude. The pay is, well, you know what the pay is. But I'm learning. About work, about people, about myself." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I wanted to come here to say that I'm sorry. Not to you. Well, yes, to you for lying in your courtroom. But mostly I wanted to ask, is there any way I could speak to Miss Santos to apologize properly?" "I can't arrange that for you," I said. "That would be up to her." "I understand. I need her to know that I understand now. What I did to her, what I took from her. Not just the money or the work days, but her dignity. You said that in court, and at the time, I didn't really get it. But I do now. When you're standing behind a counter and someone treats you like you're invisible, like you're nothing, I understand what I did to her, and I'm ashamed." I studied him for a long moment. "Mr. Aldrich, what will you do when your community service is finished?" "I don't know," he said. "My father wants me to come work for his company, executive training program, but I'm not sure that's what I want anymore. I'm thinking about going back to school, social work, maybe, or teaching, something that actually matters." "That's a good impulse," I said. "Hold on to it." He stood to leave, then hesitated. "Your Honor, can I ask you something? Why were you so hard on me? I mean, I know I deserved it, but you could have just given me probation, community service, maybe a fine. Why jail?" I leaned back in my chair. "Because you needed to learn that actions have consequences. Real consequences. Not the kind your father's lawyers can make disappear with a phone call. You needed to understand that human dignity is not negotiable. That every person, regardless of how much money they make or where they were born, deserves to be treated with respect. You couldn't learn that from a fine or a lecture. You had to feel it. You had to live it." He nodded slowly. "Thank you, Your Honor, for not giving up on me." After he left, I sat alone in my chambers for a while, thinking about that case, about Maria Santos and her quiet strength, about Christopher Aldrich and whether people can truly change, about justice and redemption and the distance between the two. I don't know if Christopher Aldrich will keep the lessons he learned. I don't know if he'll go back to his comfortable life and forget what it felt like to stand on aching feet for 8 hours, serving people who barely see you. But I know this. For 90 days and 500 hours of service, he lived in a world where his last name meant nothing, where his worth was measured by how he treated others, not by his father's bank account. That's all any judge can do. Create a moment of clarity, a space where the truth becomes unavoidable. What people do with that moment, that's up to them. I've been asked many times over the years what justice really means. It's a question I've struggled with my entire career. But I think in the end, it comes down to something very simple. Justice is the recognition that every human being has inherent worth, that we are all deserving of dignity, respect, and fair treatment under the law. Money doesn't change that. Fame doesn't change that. Nothing changes that. Maria Santos understood that truth. She lived it every day. Christopher Aldrich had to be taught it, the hard way, but he learned. And that, perhaps, is the best any of us can hope for. Respect is not something you can buy, inherit, or demand. It is earned through how we treat others, especially those who cannot offer us anything in return.